The day after returning back to Melbourne, folks, I got stuck outside here cleaning up the garden, not mowing the lawn, so don't look around for the weeds and tell me you haven't done anything. I've been cleaning up the tomatoes mainly, pruning down all the plants that have gone to seed, and I'll take you for a quick tour. But you can see here, these are the big Malaccas. I'm halfway through potting up, I think it's about 180 of them. And I've run out of 6-inch pots, so I'm going into a 7-inch pot, that is. Now, the blend that I'm using here, for those who don't know, it's our own mix. And I'm combining our planting mix and cocoa, and you can see there's a fair bit of cocoa on top. Well, you can't see the planting mix as much because it's blended into it, but it's for the porosity that I want in it, so you can drain, because the planting mix isn't designed for pots on its own this size. It'll be great for large planters and large beds and ground as well. And if you are going to plant in a pot, well, mix it 50-50 and then top dress it with a little bit of superfood and give it a liquid feed when you're finished. And we'll come back to visit these in about a week, and I expect these to be really doubled in size and greening up really well. So come and have a look and see what I've done to my tomatoes. Now, not only these tomato plants, pretty much all of them, if you saw yesterday's episode or video that we did, they were pretty bushy and sort of lying on the ground and sort of trailing away from where they're growing and then trying to point back up. Now, I've left 2 or 3 litres on these going up. But as you look at them closely, look at this. The leaves are cupping downwards, they're curling that way. They look a little bit sort of worse for wear. That's because when I first picked them up, they were facing on the ground while they were lying down on the ground. You can come around this side and you'll see it's curving that way. This whole plant was lying down on the ground this way, and then I lifted it up and it was curled back down that way, so it was bent. And the way it's looking at the moment, it's straightening itself back up. So in the next day or two, from this overarching shape that it had because it was leaning on the ground, it'll straighten back up, and then we'll start training it properly. And that's what happens with tomato plants or any sort of plant that basically is left to, grow at its own accord. When you go to lift it up, it's pointing in all sorts of directions. It needs a couple of days to settle in and start finding which way is up, and you can clean it up like that. That one there is even worse. But in about a week, you won't even know that was going through that phase. But right next to it, with a tomato trainer, and I tell you, this bloody trainer, I should use this with all my tomatoes. So much easier, really is. There are a couple of sizes. We've sold out of the large ones. This is slightly the shorter one, but still, for what size it has on it, look at the amount of tomatoes on this plant here, and they're healthy, meaning you've got stacks of them, you've got a clean plant, you can train multiple litres through it all, providing you take some of those leaves off so they can breathe in between. And that's what I've done here today. I've cleaned all this up so I can see right through. And every bunch, we've lost some here. So you're not going to get every flower setting 100%, but you've lost a couple there. But there's another 1, 2, 3, 4 going on there, half a dozen here. At least 30 or 40 tomatoes already, and we haven't even started the season over here. Dwarf beans on the outside, these are butter beans. They're starting to produce some fruit. It's still a little bit small, but they're going to be delicious. Let's go see the other ones. And these ones here are the big Malaccas we got. I actually planted 4 in here, I couldn't resist. I said I'm going to get at least some in the ground before we run out of the season. But I've also planted some beetroot. We've got some spring onions over there. I think that was about it, just beetroot and spring onions. And another 2 big Malaccas here. So these are, obviously these were still in those punnets or those little pots that I had. You can see how different it is from staying in a pot, same age, no difference in age, folks. It's just that these roots weren't able to grow because the pot's confined, whereas these have settled down into a beautiful planting mix and it's taken off. Now this is also the bed that's got the straw wall as an insulator. Let's have a look on the side, because I reckon it's breaking down and it's going to be full of nutrients and life. Have a look at that. This is what's happening. See all that? Now that hasn't quite broken down, but right next to it where it touches the soil, let me get a handful of that. Oh, hasn't blended in yet. It's still moist. That's a good sign. So we've got plenty of time for this to break down. You can see I haven't done my homework here. I've just come along expecting to find something. Well, I'm finding beautiful soil. That's what I'm finding here. Oh, it's holding the moisture in. This bed is really moist, and that's the overhead sprinkler systems, folks. Prior to that, everything was always dehydrating on me now, And now with the overhead sprinklers, I think I'm overwatering the garden beds because the surrounding lawn area is getting a good dosage. So it's cooling the whole environment down. Hence, these beds aren't drying out at all. I mean, these are the new beds, they hardly dry out. But the lower beds, even themselves, which are notoriously dry at the best of times, are holding the moisture a lot better. So these tomatoes, back to that, 1 litre, 2 litres we've got. And I'll probably get a 3rd litre. Yeah, I left a little one down there to come up. Look at the first group of flowers. How gorgeous is that, eh? Now, if you reflect on the video before, these were trailing on the ground. They would have had at least 8 uprights trying to grow. And the problem I found with these was that they were so dense inside. I was going to let them bush out. I wasn't going to train them up. But once I had a close look at them, they were starting to get septoria leaf spot, a little bit of rust developing on it. That's the overhead sprays. I reckon the humidity, that's what happens with those diseases. They start becoming active when the temperature's right, hot, humidity's up, and we're laughing. Now, because these were lying on the ground, you know how tomatoes can shoot off new roots on the stem wherever it's in direct contact with the soil. Well, this one here, as I'm looking at it now, was in direct contact on the soil just up here. That's how far down it was lying. So this stem here, where I'm touching now, was down here somewhere touching the soil, because along the side, you'll see all the pimples. Now those there, folks, if you see them along your plants, generally down the bottom, or if the stem's lying on the ground, don't think it's a disease. That's actually the beginnings of new roots developing on your plant. They look like pimples, and eventually they push out little fibrous roots and they drill into the soil and connect to the earth and keep growing. Again, because they were lying down, all these leaders were curling back up like that. So when I lifted them up from that position, they've gone sideways on top and they're slowly coming back up to face the sun. So they'll straighten themselves up on their own. A lot happier. Now these have got 1, 2, 3 or 4 leaders on them. I don't see any tomatoes on these as yet, unlike the other ones, and that's because I let them bush out a lot. But look, all the flowers are on there on top now, coming along. And we've got underplanting with onions, basil. I stuck in a capsicum or 2, one over here, and you can see the marigolds. Now, what I found with the marigolds in these raised beds, they don't like the wet feet. They get really soggy too quickly. They actually rot out too quick. So marigolds like an actual drier bed than what I've got in these raised beds. So ideal for a lot of veggies, but the marigolds need to be slightly larger before you put them in the ground. You remember these ones? I sprayed them with that concoction I made up and I knocked them out for 6. Well, they weren't in the best state to start with, and they weren't really taking it on really well at all. They actually went backwards. So I was going to rip them out, but again, I'm doing a trial, folks, and I want to see how I succeed. If I can succeed in salvaging these, I don't expect to get any fruit off them, but I dare say they will kick on because we've got some new growth, and I have to work meticulously through this to see which ones we're good, because they were riddled with spots. Even here still we've got a bit of burning. See all that there, dieback? That there will eventually be taken off, and very limp, so not limp, but very thin stemmed. See, very poor flowering on it. Same mix as we have, but again, these plants struggle from the beginning, and I'm trying to bring them back to life with minimal effort, you know, just a little bit of pruning. I'm really not watering them with anything special, kombucha or anything like that, just the pruning, a little bit of maintenance, and hopefully, if they do come good, well, we can see the trials we've done and the efforts that we made to bring something back to life. But best, I suppose, if you've only got a small space, don't persevere with something like this. Cut it back down, get rid of it, plant something fresh. And you know that you can plant cuttings from the stem or even the leaf of a plant. I won't do it with this one, we'll do it with one over there. So you take a leaf like this. I've got the right leaf, yep. Simple leaf like that, right? Now in here I've sown dill and something else as well, but anyway, I don't think I'll disturb it. I'll just punch a hole with my finger like that. I'm going to take the bottom leaves off. Believe it or not, I've done this so many times, and it just amazes me how a total plant will grow out of this one leaf. I might pinch the end off because it's too long. And that's it there, folks. If you've got a favourite tomato plant, and it is all tomatoes for me today, all you need to do is take one cutting, or you know, every leaf that you remove, or even those side suckers that come up the shoots, plant them in below the plant or somewhere else nearby, and one plant can give you multiple plants, providing you pick a healthy plant to start with. So, look after your tomatoes. Oh, one more before I go to the outro. One more. my traditional growing technique, folks. This is how I like to grow my tomatoes. I don't like growing them on stakes because that really compresses them and they get diseased a lot easier that way. I mean, if you spend a lot of time training them and making sure that the stems don't rub against the wood, and if you're using tomato stakes or any sort of garden stake, use round ones. They're a lot easier, a lot safer. They don't cut into the side of the stem if you've got an edge on the tomato stake. So the round ones I prefer better, but otherwise I use a string, or you can use a soft tie like this. And if you were wondering in previous episodes what this frame was and you haven't seen me use this before, this is what it's for, is to train the tomatoes up. You simply tie them to the base of the stem, of any stem, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. And it's not too late to do that with tomatoes, especially if you've got one rambling off on you. All you need to do is get yourself a frame. You can do that with a builder frame. You can make it like this, as I have as well. You can use all sorts of material if you like, if you're pretty handy with the tools. Build yourself a frame, give yourself some height there, tie it to the base of your stem. As it grows up, just wrap it around and twirl it around like a snake, like this, all the way up. But when you get to the top, you can lop the top off, or you can trade it across, depends on your microclimate, because sometimes when they go across the top, they start to get scorched because they're lying flat with the sun. But if you've got good weather, you may be able to actually grow your tomatoes and have them hanging like grapes. That's the way to do it. So if you need any more advice on tomatoes, folks, we've got hundreds of videos online on our YouTube channel. You can try and find them on Facebook as well, or any other platform we're broadcasting them on. Or you can comment below and I'll try and give you some advice, send some photos as well. It's a great way to be able to solve the problems you have. Otherwise, check out our website, VasilisGarden.com. We've got some great specials running. Our planting mix is discounted, as are many other products online. And our outlets, well, they're going to be open today and tomorrow, so take advantage of the click and collect and save on shipping. VasilisGarden.com. From me, Vasili Maresi.